What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about the cost of ownership of a Polaris RZR, how much it's going to cost you to buy the machine, how much it's going to cost you to modify the machine, and then also how much it's going to cost you to maintain the machine. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, so starting off, just as an example today, I'm going to be using my 2019 RZR XP4 Turbo as an example. So this machine, when it was purchased new, was around $19,000. This was pre-COVID. I live in Florida as well, so obviously there's fees and taxes associated with that as well. But right now, there's used machines, especially the four-seaters, and the turbos are getting harder to find as well. There's used machines going for $20,000 or more with modifications. So these machines are definitely getting harder to come by. The manufacturer is having a hard time keeping up with the demand on new machines, so that makes the used market even higher. But if you do decide to get a used machine, or a brand new machine, I'm sorry, you're going to be obviously paying the retail pricing plus dealer fees and taxes associated with those. So, and that's also going to be a bone stock machine with nothing done to it. So you're at around $20,000 or more, depending on the machine that you go with. So, like I said, this machine was around $19,000, brand new. Out the door, it was around 21 and some change. I didn't pay that. I'm not the one who bought it brand new, but I do personally know the guy who did buy it, so I know exactly pretty much what they paid for it. And like I said, that was a bone stock machine. All right, so after you purchase the machine, like I said, if you got it brand new, more than likely it's going to be stock, and you're going to want to do some upgrades to it. So there's a few things that I feel are necessities that are not really anything optional. There's just pieces that you're going to need to make the machine a lot more enjoyable to ride. First things first is going to be a roof. Most of the machines are not going to come with a roof, and the sun, and the elements will really eat you up without a roof. So that's kind of like a number one thing in my book. So that'll run you right around $300 to $400, depending on the type of roof that you go with. If it's two-seater, it'll be a little bit less. Four-seater obviously is a two-piece, so it's more expensive, but that's definitely a necessity. Next would be a windshield. I really like this Super ATV flip-up windshield because there's some times where you need a full windshield, and there's also times where you're only going to want, a half windshield because it's too hot. So with this, you have the ability to flip it up, and then it's fully open, so you have full ventilation, or you can lock it in this position, in the vented position, and then you can get a little bit of air. And then also, obviously, you can seal it, and then it's completely sealed. This way, no dirt or dust or anything comes in. It also blocks you from, the rain or anything else coming into your face. So that's definitely a necessity there. So this windshield will run you, depending on if you get the scratch-resistant one or not. This one is not the scratch-resistant windshield, so it is around $400. I think the scratch-resistant one is more like $480, $490. I'd highly recommend the scratch-resistant one. This one in the sun, you can see, has some scratches. It's not huge, but it does make a difference as far as visibility. So another really important feature you're going to want is a winch, especially if you're out riding by yourself, or even if you're not. If you get stuck and nobody has a winch, you're in a bad spot. So it's really good to have a winch. This is a Super ATV, 4,500 pound winch. So I would say get at least, a 4,000 to 5,000 pound winch. It'll be more than enough. You don't want to go and cheap out and get like a Harbor Freight winch or anything like that. They're really cheap. I've been there, done that before. I definitely recommend the synthetic rope as well instead of the steel cable. It'll just last longer. You don't have to worry about the steel cable getting kinked or, snapping because it got rusted. So I'd invest in a winch that has a synthetic rope as well. So this winch, the Super ATV winch, will run you about $400 altogether. Last but not least, some people really wouldn't consider this an essential, but to me, you got to have music out there on the trail. Otherwise, it's just kind of boring. It's quiet. So you can get a decent sound bar like this for around $400. It's not too bad. It's not the loudest, but this is, I upgraded my sound system since then. I showed that in my other video. I got some amps, a couple door speakers, some pods, and some 8s in the floor, and then a subwoofer as well. But just to start out, a good sound bar will get you by for a while. And you can get higher end ones that are like $500 to $800, but this one you can pick up for around $300 to $400. All right, so we've gone over the purchase of the machine. Like I said, around $20,000 to $25,000, just depending on the machine that you go for. That's with this caliber of a machine. I mean, you can go and get a Polaris RZR 570, for brand new. I think they're around 10 to 15,000. or a Ranger or something like that. But if you want something, that's four-seater, if you want a 1000 or a turbo, unfortunately with COVID and everything going on right now, you're going to spend, upwards of $20,000, by the time you get done with taxes and fees and things like that. Then with just the necessities that we went over, just so far, you're talking another $2,000, so let's say on the high side, you're probably at around $27,000 just with the extra modifications. And that's not getting into the aftermarket stuff, which is what we'll cover now. So one thing I would recommend, especially on the bigger machines, the 1000s and the turbos, I would go with a set of wheels and tires. So these are 32-inch carnivores. They make a whole bunch of different tires, but carnivores for me have been the best overall. I do a lot of trail riding and street riding, a little bit of mud and water here and there, and they're really good in just about every application. These are 14-inch frontline wheels. Look great in my opinion. A set of 32s, you really can't go wrong on these razors. It's the perfect size for these machines. Just really gives it a great look. Another really common mod on these is the upgraded A-arms. So these are the high lifter, high clearance A-arms. Give you a little bit more clearance, a little more ground clearance, a little bit more lift. Just look a lot nicer. And then also the radius rods as well. So the stock radius rods in the rear are they're really thin. I'd recommend these Super ATV boxed radius rods. They're a lot thicker, a lot stronger. You'll see a lot of stock machines that have these bottom ones bent just from hitting something or something kicking up, and they'll have a slight bend in it. So I definitely recommend replacing these as well. Another upgrade you're going to want to do is going to be additional lighting, because from the factory you're going to get just some standard headlights with some high beams, and they're okay. But you're going to want some extra lighting in the trails, especially at night, because they're not bright enough. So I'll show you real fast. Kind of hard to see in the daytime, but there's a little bit of light there, not a whole lot. Turn the high beams on, and there's a little bit of a difference. At night, it's still a good amount of light, but regardless, you're gonna want to get a light bar. At night, this is insanely bright. It's almost too bright, but there's just sometimes where you're gonna need it. And then you're also going to want a rear light bar as well, so that if you're backing up, you can see behind you, or people can see you backing up. That's key as well. I also have some pod lights. They're kind of like rock lights, but I have them on all four corners of the machine. That gives me a little bit extra visibility at night to what I'm driving through, and then also makes me more visible to other drivers as well. So that really helps. A little bit more visibility at night. Last but not least, I do like to have a little bit of interior light. This light is actually like overkill. It's super bright, but I have kids, and when you're trying to get your seatbelt on or something falls into the footwell, you can see what you're doing. This is just one single pod light wired up to this switch here, so that I can see when I get in and out of the machine, and my passengers can see as well. Would also recommend some mirrors. You got to be able to see what's behind you and what's next to you. Definitely comes in clutch, so you don't have to keep on turning your head around. That gets really annoying after a while. Another great feature too would be to add some snorkels. Couple things with these razors. So obviously, if you're not going through a whole lot of water, it's not a huge deal, but at the same time, the belt exhaust on these is very low. This is where the belt exhaust usually comes up and out of, and it's only about this tall. So if you go through more than that, obviously the exhaust is pushing air out, but still, if there's not enough pressure coming out and you're in deep enough water, you can still get water inside your belt box. So on the turbos, they have this little bracket here, this little arm that comes out, and then you just hook on some PVC, and then you can get yourself some Warrior risers. It's a little bit easier to do with the belt intake. It just goes straight up through there, and then you just got a piece of PVC there to the riser. And then same thing with the intake for the motor. Same deal, stock intake tube up to the Warrior riser, and now you can literally go this high in water. I don't usually go through there, but the issue is that the intakes are only about this high. So if you get anything that splashes up in there, any water or anything, it's literally going right down into the intake tube and into the airbox. So that's why it's always just good to have that peace of mind to get a little bit more height, just in case you do encounter some deep water, you're not in trouble. And then also you can run the vent lines for the gas tank, and then also the rear diff, and then the front diff as well. Mine is up and ran up through into the cage up front. All right, so with all those additional extras, we're looking at around $3,000 between the wheels, the tires, the lights, you know, all the snorkels, everything, the radius rods. So you're looking at an additional $3,000. So now we're getting closer to 30 grand. You know, by the time you get done with the necessities, the extras, buying the machine, a little expensive. Plus, if you don't have a trailer to tow it with, you know, if you can't just come out, we're lucky we're in the country, but if you need a trailer to tow it with, you're talking $2,000, you know, plus for at least a 7x14 to fit this 4-seater. You know, and if you want it enclosed, it gets even more money. Just depends on how much you want to put into it. But, you know, with the side-by-side stuff, you have to pay to play, unfortunately. So, and then, you know, you obviously have to maintain it. So let's get into, you know, what maintenance on one of these looks like. So maintenance on these is very much like a car. So you have your air filter, your oil changes, transmission flush. There's a front differential as well that you have to flush. You got your brake pads, your wheel bearings, things like that. Main things are just to make sure you keep your air filter clean, especially in these turbos. They suck in a lot more air than the naturally aspirated machines. You got to keep your air filter clean. I usually bang out the air filter every 1 to 2 rides. Just bang it out, blow it out with some air, put it back in, and you know it's good to go. Just keep an eye on that. And same thing with oil changes. I think every 50 hours you do the oil changes. Usually check mine every couple rides, make sure that the level is supposed to be where it's supposed to be. And then obviously the transmission flush, just check the fluid. You just pull the drain plug out on the back. It should be coming out. You know, if it's nice and clean looking, you know, you're usually pretty good. If it starts to get dirty, if you go through a bunch of water crossings and you think you got water in it, you're gonna want to flush it. Same thing with the front diff. Literally just drain it out, put the new fluid in. I'd recommend all Polaris fluids, the AGL that they have for the differential, and then the Polaris oil as well, and you know, with the filter too. So same thing with the air filter, Polaris OEM belt. Obviously this stuff is tried and true and tested in these machines, so I would stick with the OEM as far as maintenance for these. Alright guys, that's pretty much all I have today, just to kind of give you an example of what you'd be looking at, you know, owning one of these machines. Like I said, it's not like you have to go and spend $30,000 to have a good time. I know plenty of people that spend under $10,000 for their machines, used or new. Sometimes you get a good deal, and they're having just as good of a time. For me, I've had multiple machines, and my demand for a machine of this caliber has gone up over time. So you know, I like having the 4 seats. I have a wife. I have kids. I like having the turbo. I like having the power when I need it. And then other than that, I like having the extra features built in. So buy used and save yourself some money, but that comes with a price sometimes, because sometimes you're buying other people's problems. It's kind of how I bought this machine, but luckily I ended up getting a somewhat good of a deal on it, so I was able to fix the issues, you know, and make it my own. So if you guys like the content, I'm going to make more on the machine. I'm going to do some riding videos soon, so if you like what I'm putting out, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.